Okay, good morning, folks. What we're going to do is walk through on this lab that we have in this web development class. And this lab is a lab on building a website with Flexbox, and specifically Flexbox for a website layout. So we're using Flexbox for all aspects of the site. And the general idea here, we've got some guidelines. These first guidelines are the content for the site. And it says use a mobile first techniques. So we will design this site for mobile first. This will be what the website looks like in desktop view. And then in mobile first is mostly everything's going to be a column. You know, the nav bar will be a column, so the nav bar will be vertical. The aside content will be above the main on mobile devices, so aside above the main. And the aside will be to the right of main on desktop. The content inside of main will be vertical and horizontal on desktop. So vertical on mobile, horizontal on desktop. We got media queries at these different, these three different breakpoints. But they kind of list here, you could do more breakpoints should you choose. When I'm coding in Flexbox, I keep this article on my screen because there's a lot of properties and things that I just like to have my cheat sheet in my back pocket. Because you know things like the default values. Okay, ordering, the default value of an order is 0, right? Just to kind of know, you know, default flex grow is 0. What are the values for flex wrap? It's just good to have that in your back pocket. So this is at csstricks.com, a guide to Flexbox. Really good guide. And updated. Literally 6 days ago. So that's awesome. This name's familiar, by the way, too. I don't really know this guy, but can't say that I follow him, but it's a familiar name, so maybe one looking at some other articles he's done. See who this guy is. On the DL. You wrote it, get it on the, okay. I find that funny. All right, here we go. Let's start some code. So I'm just gonna put this in like a chapter 9 part 2 type folder. So labs, chapter 9 labs. Just gonna make a new folder called P2 for part 2. Make our home page. Okay. And I'm recording this, so I'm gonna move at my own speed, which tends to be fast. So this is not like necessarily a keep up with me kind of thing. I'd rather you just observe this the first time through. And then if you need the recording to go back and see exactly why I did something, you could always go back. If you want to try and code along, you feel free to keep up, but I generally go kind of fast. In the requirements, has a pretty good guide here for what's in the header, what's in the nav bar. We've got our main here, and main has 2 rows in main. And then we got our sidebar over here. So that tells me that main and aside are also in some sort of container together. And then we got our footer. So if we're talking about the body, what are the children of body? I'm thinking we've got a header, we've got a nav bar, we've got this section here that contains the main and the aside. So we've got a header, a nav. We'll call this a section, this big section. The section holds main and the section holds the aside. And then we've got our footer, and those are going to be the children of body. And so as we go to code this, we can kind of start with header tag. Then we said a nav tag under that. Then we said a section tag under that. And then we said footer under that. And inside of this section, we had a main, and we had an aside. And as I flush this out, you know, obviously I'll remove these words here, but just to kind of show the progress as I build out the site. You know, all we're really looking at here is a bunch of block level elements. Nothing is flexing yet. Close this other Visual Studio that I have open. So I'm just got one Visual Studio open, and my live preview, and then I'm going to keep my guide to Flexbox on my second screen so I can just reference that as needed. And then I'll keep my requirements in the same tab as my live view. Okay, so now what? So let's start with the header. In the requirements, if you read through this, it's always just a good idea to read all the requirements first. It does say mobile first technique, so we'll do that. And it says then use media queries to progressively enhance the page as the viewport gets wider with minimum width. Use a Flexbox container to ensure the body is 100 VH tall. Give the excess space to main using FlexGrove 1. Okay. So just a couple things in there about the body being 100 vertical height and the main using FlexGrove. And then it kind of talks about the nav bar. Then it talks about the aside. The content inside of main must be vertical on mobile, horizontal on desktop. Okay. So let's, in the header, it says make a fictitious company. And I always default to like some sort of cryptocurrency company. And so if I'm looking up whatever, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to be a cryptocurrency consultant. That's what my fake company will be. I'm going to be a crypto consultant. And so if I just search consulting, okay, so it's a pretty small image. I'd like something bigger. That looks like a big image. Okay, cool. So save image as, and this is in my chapter 9, part 2, images, new folder, images. And I'll just call this my logo. It's a JPG. Okay, inside of my header, we've got an image, and close that down. Nice big image, and a website name. So that'll go in an H1 tag. What do we need to do then? We need to consider whether we want this to be 100% width across the page. We need to scale down this image so that it's smaller. And we're going to start in a mobile view. So if I inspect on Chrome, since this is mobile first, I'm going to inspect here, and I'm going to change this to be like an iPhone 375. And then I'm going to give this 100% view. You can zoom in if you want a little bit, 125, see a little bit bigger. Okay. So to get, the website name going across from the logo, we could tell the header to display flex. So let's go ahead and make a CSS. Styles.css. This is a traditional name. Let's link to our style sheet. And let's tell the header to display flex. And right away, you're going to see that gets that going across the top. Let's tell the header, because that's way big. That if I'm looking at this header, we could say, okay, maybe that's 10% VH. So let's do a max height of 10 VH. Let's see how that looks. Okay, that obviously screws with the image, but it's at least the header is about the right height. Maybe I'll go 15. Okay, so then let's target that image in the header. So I'll say the image in the header. And in Discord, I went ahead and put this nice little article. I'll pull it up on the screen here about how to do some responsive images. So I just want to kind of code these images in a responsive nature. So I'll go ahead and make a class of responsive so that I can just throw this class on any image that I have. And if you want to restrict a responsive image to a maximum size, use the max width property with a pixel value of your choice. So we can set the responsive to a maximum width, and that's going to maybe help it from stretching out so far, because right now it's nice and stretched, way wider than maybe we would like it to be. So let's go ahead and code a class of responsive. So responsive image. How about that? Class of responsive image. And then what we'll do is we'll put that on our image. Class of responsive image. Make sure that yeah, okay. So again, back to this article. Oh, there it is. Width of 100%, and then we're gonna tinker around with the max width, and then we'll set the height of auto. So let's go ahead and do width 100%, width 100%, height of auto. We're gonna set the max width, and let's just set it to 400 pixels and see what that looks like. Pretty. Class of responsive image. Let's inspect this real quick. logo JP. I gotta save something. Something's not saved. See, my index is not saved. There we go. I'm sitting there going, why is it not responding? Okay, save your work as you go. That gets it to refresh. Now let's change it back to, I don't know, 200 pixels. Okay. Not super pretty, but it gets the job done. Now let's see. Does it talk about the header? Let's look in the header. Does it say the header needs to be? Let's see. Nav bar must be vertical. Aside content on main must be vertical. It doesn't talk anything about the header. So notice it doesn't say that the header has the company name check, the logo check, and make the logo a link to the home page. Okay, so that's easy enough. So the logo, this image needs to be a link to the home page, so that's just an anchor tag. Let's go ahead and surround this image in an anchor tag. Okay, so now that is a link that really doesn't go anywhere. Okay, we can click it and it doesn't go anywhere. You know, as far as the colors go, you know, go the Adobe color wheel. There's all sorts of things to explore, colors, trends. Just to pick some colors. Let's see. See if I search techie themes. Okay. So let's go with this. Yeah, sure. Well, it doesn't matter much. Okay, so these are our colors. As good as any. Okay, I can live with that. Background color on the body. Then we'll do a body text color. It doesn't really contrast all that well. They're all dark. So we need something lighter to contrast. But I picked the lightest color for my background. So I'll do a text color of white. Okay, not to worry about that too much. Okay. We got the header taken care of. We got a responsive image now. Nav main aside footer. We're still in iPhone view, mobile first design, down into the nav. So the nav, let's mark it up first. UL greater than LI times 5, right? There's our emit hotkey. So we got our, inside of our nav, we got our unordered list, and you're going to hold down the Alt key. This is always fun to do. Type in the anchor tag, link to nowhere, say links. Now we've got our links. And let's style those up. So I'm going to try and keep some sort of structure to my CSS. This is mobile first CSS. So we start with the generic body tag up top, then we got our header, our responsive image. This is also this responsive image. This is going to be more like this is a class we're going to put on a bunch of things, so keep that kind of up at the top. We're going to say the unordered list that's inside of our nav, list style type of none, so we get rid of our bullets. Let's do all of our links. Okay, so here's the style for our links. A link visited, focus, hover, active. Okay. Color. Again, I'm going to leave the color white. I'm going to leave the text color all white. By the way, you know, the difference between 6 Fs and 3 Fs, this is just a shorthand. In this case, the 3 Fs, each individual F represents a second F. So if you see the shorthand, that's all that is. Background color on our links will just be this darker shade here. One thing that I've demonstrated in this class, in order to set like a height and a width on our links, we want to make it display block. Let's see if I take that display block out. Our links don't have a width because they're inline tags. But as soon as we tell it to display block, now our links are pretty wide, which is cool. You might notice that this unordered list has some green on the inspect tool. And what that green is, ULs by default have padding of 40 pixels. So I'm going to target the UL inside of my, oh, look, it also, that link up there in the header also has that blue background because I wasn't specific enough in my anchor tags. So I can fix that. So a couple things. First, let's remove that. The nav UL has some padding on the left. Let's just get rid of that. Okay, great. And then you might say, well, what about that space there? I'm going to use a normalize. So let's normalize this. So let's download normalize. And this is MP2, normalize CSS. Okay. So now, as we know, to link to normalize, notice that gets rid of the spacing on the outside. There was there was some like padding or margin on body. I forget which one it was. But when I link to normalize, now you see my links are going 100% width of the entire view of the page. So I want these to just be the links inside of nav, so I'll just do nav, 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 nav. So now I don't have that blue underline on the link that's of my header. Let's also tell this display flex. Of course, that's going to put them back in a row. Flex direction column puts them back in the column. So thinking about this, the justify content would be up and down. Align items should be left and right. So but they're already taken. So I don't think if I do align item center, there we go. Now let's see if I add padding. Okay, so now we can add padding to our links. Padding top 1em. So let's do padding top and bottom 1em, left and right 1em. Let's just do 1em of padding. Let's just do 1em of padding. Padding 1em. And so now our links are starting to look more like the buttons. Let's add the border. Let's add a thin 2-pixel solid and black. And when I aligned items in the center, they kind of lost their width, interestingly enough. I'm curious if I say width 100%. Yeah, it doesn't really do anything for me. Let me look at something real quick on my cheat sheet. So, you know, what I did was instead of a line item center, you know, on the cheat sheet, when you look up align items, you know, another option is stretch. But literally, if you take it out and then you do text align center, so I think there's a couple ways to skin the cat, so to speak. That gets the job done. Or if you keep the align items, you would do align items stretch. And then you still got a text align center.
Question. How did you get the how did you get it stretched all the way to the end of the screen? Because that's what I'm working at right now.
The one to get it to the end of the screen, I did a normalize, and I also removed the padding on the list.
Okay, no padding on the list.
Yeah, they're on the UL. So there was padding on the left of the UL.
Okay.
Okay, so again, we're in this mobile first design here, and we've got the header and the nav bar styled properly. Let's go back to the requirements. And there's actually quite a bit of content here. So inside of our section, we've got a main, and in that main, we've got 2 more sections. So let's go back to our markup. Okay, so inside of main, so we got a section, and inside of main, we've got a section. We'll call this section ID of top main, and a section ID of, this is on the bottom of main, we've got products. So we'll say products. So we got top main, and then we got products. So we've got this outer section, which maybe we'll give an ID of, I don't know, middle. I'm sure there's a better name. So we've got the middle of the page. Inside of the middle, we've got main, and we've got a side. That's this box, and this box is, the main. And then inside of main, we've got top, and we've got products. And then in the aside, we've got basically some content. So let's fill that out. So here it looks like we've got 3 sections. We'll call them 3 paragraphs. So inside of top main, I'll say paragraph with lorem ipsum. Another paragraph with lorem ipsum. And another paragraph with lorem ipsum. So that's our top main. If we look at this, of course, these paragraphs are just going to be stacked on top of one another. We need them to go across the page. That's really simple. We just need to put them into a Flexbox. And so we'll target top main. Display flex, and that should get them to go across. Now, in mobile, it doesn't really say what it should do in mobile, but I'm imagining these paragraphs should be in a column, right, in mobile. So since we're doing mobile first, in top main, I'm going to do flex direction column, and that gets those back into their column. So that's exactly what we want for the 3 paragraphs. Then let me bring this back full screen and inspect it. That's what I need to be in. It just gets hard because the inspect tool needs to scroll a little bit for me. You can undock this inspect tool, by the way. Let's see, I just did this the other day. Undock, here we go. Dock to the right, dock to the bottom, undock into a separate window. All right. So that's better. So let's bring that 100%. Okay. As if we need another window, but that's going to help us. Then, if we go back here, we've got our products, which are in the section here called products. Now, I'm going to do some divs. So I'll just say div times 4. 4 divs, and inside the 4 divs, let me hold down Alt, image tag. Kind of a fun little resource. I don't know that I've shown you guys this yet. Maybe I have. There is a website called placehold.it. And this is the free image placeholder service favored by designers. And so you just kind of like pick your image dimensions, and it generates, so like if this is your URL, to your image, it generates the 150 by 150. So you just got a nice square image, right? So so if I were to throw this into my image source, boy, that was ugly, how that pasted. Boy, that's ugly. What did that do? There we go. I'm going to pick my size. I don't think it's going to be 150. And let's look at this in the browser. See, that extra window got me. So we get these 150 images. Now, because they're all in divs, the images are blocks. They're on top of one another. And I'm wondering how these placeholders respond to my, like if I put the class of responsive on them, I wonder how they're going to respond. So let me just try, I don't know, let's just try 300 just to see. And okay, they're nice and big images. Okay, so 300's probably bigger than we need, but that's okay. So now let's get into the CSS of our images. So products is our ID, so we'll start with products. Products is the parent of all the divs. So if we tell products to display flex, they'll go all in a row and probably crunch all together. Yeah, that obviously doesn't look very good because they're all in a row. So let's then flex direction column. And we get them back in that way. I wonder if we just say products image, width of 100%, height of auto, so they'll just fill up the entire space. No, because see, they're 300. They're not going to be any bigger. So let's do this. Let's download an image instead. This is a very, you get these 300 by 300. I don't know that you can make these responsive. I tried to make them responsive. It didn't listen. Did I mistype something? Good question. Let me see. Maybe? Yeah. Products. Maybe I did. Oh, good eye. I'm glad you saw my typo. Thank you. Well, good. So what I didn't do is I didn't set a max width here because I just want them to take up the full space, right? So I didn't set the max width on the products. They're nice and big, and that's great. And that's what you want. If you don't want them that big, you could set maybe products div to be smaller. You know, that's not working. Just trying some different things. That's really not working at all. Not working at all. Okay, for now I'm going to be happy with this. Probably just choose a smaller image. I say I'm going to be happy, and then what do? I change it. It's still pretty big. Yeah, it doesn't matter because it's stretching it. Because the height is auto, so it's just taking up that whole space. So what you might do is take that off, and then maybe just go back to the 200, and let's just move it into the center, maybe. That way they're not taking up so much space. So we've got these in a flex box, and their main axis is column. Their flex direction is column, so we're going to justify the content to the center. So let's do that. Justify content center. Let's see why that didn't move. So it's in the div, products, justify content center. Well, unless I got something backwards here in my mind, let's do align item center. That did what I wanted it to do. Something's backwards in my mind. What the book taught me is not what what's going in practice. The book taught me that if you change the flex direction, that align items changes, but I'm not going to get tripped up on this. Moving on. So we have content. We've got images. Check, check. Let's get the aside. Now, it does say that in the mobile, the aside must be above the main on mobile devices. Well, the way I'm going to do that, since I'm doing mobile first, I'm just going to put the aside in the markup above main. Since I'm doing mobile first. And what was in the aside? I think there was a paragraph of lorem ipsum, and then I had some links. So UL times LI, or UL greater than LI times 3. Let's just do 3 links. And these are our sponsor links. And so if we go back to here, here's our aside. There's our sponsor links. Let me clean those up. So the aside's I'm just gonna code the aside right here. Aside anchor tag aside a colon hover LV focus. Okay, I think I got all those right, and I'm just going to we saw we got to remove the padding on the left. Color white. I don't want to make those links like my navbar links. I'm just going to make them different, you know. I'll just make them like plain text, just whatever. I'll just leave the underline on them. And we'll do, sure, we can center them, text align center. We got a display block. Okay. Okay, so header, navbar, aside, main. Looking good. And then footer, I think. Yeah, we got all this. Now we just need our footer. And footer 2021 crypto something.com. Ampersand copy 2021. What I call it? Geez, cryptoconsulting.com. Okay. And what do we want to do here? We'll just send the footer. Text line center, and we'll do our font size, just make it a little bit, you know, a little bit bigger and mobile. Full screen that, mobile view. All right, mobile view is done. We've got our content flushed out. And now we need to start scaling up. And so the way we scale up is with media queries. Now, per the lab, the required media queries are 600, 1200, and 25. 600 is tablet portrait, 1200 is desktop, and 25 is the big desktop. And this is going to be done with minimum width. So CSS media queries, media screen, and minimum width. So we kind of take some boilerplate CSS and we'll say, throw that in there, and we'll say minimum width 600 pixels. And again, this is for This is for 600 pixels tablet in portrait mode, so standing up. So I'll put that in my notes, my CSS, tablet portrait. And just to make sure that this media query is working, got inspect on there twice. Well, there it is. So when we go down, if we go full screen, clearly we got our different color blue. But we're in device mode here. And when it's undocked, I'm not seeing my different, oh, here it is, okay. So let's go to responsive. And if I change this to 599, as soon as I hit 600, we get the different background color. So I don't want different background color, I want to do some different things here. So let's just say on tablet. Okay, so again, the idea behind media queries is what needs to change about your CSS. So you wrote your default CSS for mobile first. So what needs to change in tablet portrait? And I don't know that the lab says to change anything at 600 pixels. And it does say to change things at the desktop, but it doesn't really say anything about changing anything. Oh, I got to do this yet. It doesn't really say anything about changing anything at the tablet, I don't think. Let me... So you get to make something up. you know, let's change something. I'm gonna add this to my normal CSS. I haven't done that yet. Mobile horizontal on the desktop, mobile desktop. Doesn't say anything about tablet. The content inside of main, vertical on mobile, and horizontal on desktop. Okay. So what do I want to change in tablet? Let's just glance here. What might look better once I get responsive? Once I get to about here, what do I want to change? You could probably do a grid of 2 by 2 once you get here. Let's do that. Once we get to tablet, we'll change our images to be 2 by 2 instead of a column. And so instead of changing the background color to light blue, well, I'll keep that in there just for temporary. I'll remove that eventually here. Let's see. This is the what? This is top main. This is products. And so if I look at my styling for products, I got to remind myself the styling for products, display flex, column, center. So instead of being a column, let's change it to row. So let's go here. Let's say products. Ooh. Flex direction row. And you're going to see you're going to get 4. So as soon as we hit 600, okay, we get 4 on a row. That's the default behavior, which is cool. So let's do this. Let's do products. And let's also do row wrap. Flex wrap. We're going to set to wrap. We're going to set the products div to be a width 25%. So we get these wrapping and we say 25%. And let's see. So that's not working. Let me pause the recording and troubleshoot. Actually, let me, oh, there it's wrapping. I just had to save it. Okay. So it's wrapping 25%. No, let's do 50%. That's why. 50%. Let's do the width of 50%. 25% is going to add up to 100. 50, 100. There we go. If all of our divs are 50%, we're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4. Interestingly enough, our images are not centered. So maybe let's address that. But now we've got a grid of 4 images. Again, the way that we did that is we set the flex direction to row. We told it to wrap, and then we told the div to be 50%. Now the images, I'll go look at my styling for my images right now. Responsive image has a max width of 200 pixels. So did I put that on? So that's that. These are all 200 pixels. See, there's still a max width. So let me look at my image. Okay, so this is one class I had. So this one I'm not going to put on responsive image 2, I'm not going to put a max width. I'm just going to put fill the container. So let's put that class on my image there. See how that fills the container? So now I'll add that class to all 4 of my images. And it'll generally be what I want. So we go from here, tablet, beautiful. Don't really care about the background color change, so we'll take that out. Cool. That's tablet portrait, and all we did was change up our products on tablet portrait. Let's do another media query at the required dimensions, 1200 pixels. Okay, there's going to be a little bit more here because this is our desktop. So there's a few more requirements at the desktop view. Let me do this. The Flexbox container edition in the body is 100 VH. So let's go ahead and go back up to the top of our CS on our body. Let's see, height 100 VH. So I don't think that's really, we got enough content here that that's not going to change anything. And then it said like if there wasn't enough content, you would see this changing something. Main of FlexGrove 1. And I don't even think that's going to do much. Let's see. I don't have any main selector here, so let's do main flex grow of 1. So main would grow faster than the rest, but again, you're not really seeing that change anything because there's enough content there that it doesn't need to stretch anything out. Okay. Where I left off was 1200 pixels on desktop. A nav bar must appear vertical on mobile and horizontal on desktop. So let's go ahead and switch that up. So on desktop, our nav bar, which is just nav, right? Somewhere, okay, it's the nav UL. So this is our nav bar. We tell our nav UL to display column here. So now nav UL on desktop, nav UL flex direction changes to be a row. And again, once we hit 1200, now our flex direction's in a row. Nav. So the nav itself is still going 100% width. Like you could just target the nav and give it a background color. Apparently, of whatever this was. And now we can justify content. space evenly, something like that. Probably don't want those images that big at this point. Probably no longer want those images to stretch. It did say it wants the main above the aside once you get to here. So the default order is 0, right? So main and aside. Now there's a parent. So the parent of main and aside. So there's main and aside, and the parent is middle. So we're going to turn middle into a flexbox at this point. So there's middle, the idea of middle. Display flex. We want main order of 1. On the aside, we'll set order of 2. So if we turn the middle to a flexbox, and we're going to tell it to also, what, display flex direction column. That way they're on top of one another and not next to one another. Okay, that did good. Yeah, that's exactly right. So this is main, and that's your aside. No, it said it wanted next to each other, didn't it? Yeah, I wanted it to be next to, let's see, what did it say? It said next to one another. Back to the requirements. Yeah, aside must be above the main on mobile and to the right of main on desktop. That's okay. That's easier. I did not need to change the flex direction. I don't think I need to change the order. Ooh, here's what I probably want to do then. We're going to set main to be a certain width. And we'll set the aside to be the remaining width. So maybe something like 75 viewport width, 25 viewport width. Okay, so the middle is displaying flex, the main's taking up a good chunk, and the aside's taking up the rest. Let's see if that's working. Probably not. Yeah. Yep. Now this aside happens to be on the left. If you want to change that, then you change the order. Right, so I kind of do want to change that. Awesome. Again, I don't like these images the way they are right now on this desktop, so I'm going to change that. You could probably put a wrapper around this whole thing and kind of get everything, whatever. But that's, so let's shrink it down. Everything changes. Interesting when you get real small, what happens there. I'd have to think about how to fix that. But you know, once you're at the iPhone, you're good. And then once we go responsive, we hit the 600 pixels. We change that to a grid. And once we hit 1200 pixels, boom, then our nav bar goes horizontal. Our aside gets pulled up onto the right, or the main gets pulled up to the left. And that's basically it, right? Did I miss anything? I mean, I could fix those images. Nav bar is vertical on mobile, horizontal on desktop. The aside is above the main on mobile, to the right of main. Oh, there it is. The aside is to the right of main on desktop. We did that. The content inside of main is vertical on mobile, check, and horizontal on desktop. So did I do that? So the content inside of main, which is this, is vertical or horizontal. Did it say horizontal on desktop? The content inside of main must be vertical on mobile and horizontal on desktop. So inside of main, yeah, I made it to these specs. I made it. I drafted it to this. According to this, you know, the content inside of main must appear vertical on mobile and horizontal on desktop. So inside of main are these two things right here. So I guess, you know, this, you know, this is good. We tinkered with it on the board, and we all agreed in class at least that putting these three things in 3 columns was more clustered, and so I think the reason why I designed it to do this now was that it was less clustery. You know, basically we got 2 columns here, which is a better layout, more appealing to the eye than 3 columns. With how much content there would be with 3 columns. So to meet the requirement, though, you could tell main to, let's just see if we can display flex. That way, that content inside of main will be in a well, there you go. Now the content inside of main, if you really wanted to meet that requirement, there you go. I think probably some stuff could be done with these images to clean that up. Just maybe not be bumping right up against the side here. But I think we covered all the techniques on how you would do that. So that'll stop the recording. There's the lab.